Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 39 of the GrowCast Show. My name is Frederick. I'm the host for today. Joining us in the show, in our studio today, is none other than Mattheus Yeo. He is a financial services manager, and we are very excited to have a chat with him today. Welcome, Mattheus. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Frederick. I'm doing great.
So first thing first, what is being better than normal mean to you?
I guess being better than normal to me means what we actually tell ourselves. It's really how we see ourselves, the words that we say to ourselves, the thoughts that we think to ourselves every day. So for example, if we are constantly telling ourselves that we are unattractive, we are a slow learner, we are just unlucky, I'm tired, I'm old already. These words, they all hold power. And the words that you say to yourself will actually determine the kind of life that you live. So being better than normal to me means really seeing ourselves in a good light. So speaking good and learn to speak good and learn to speak positive over yourself. I think a lot of people, they don't realize is that the person that we're actually talking to the most every day is actually ourselves. We are speaking to ourselves 24/7, even in our sleep sometimes. And it's just all in our mind. We're just thinking in our mind. And over time, what we say to ourselves actually becomes a reality. So learn to say things over ourselves like, I'm talented, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm disciplined, I'm good looking. And as we say all these words over ourselves, we're actually inviting positivity, better than normal, into our lives. And as we speak, so shall we receive as well.
What makes you better than normal?
Well, a few years back, I was actually spending a lot of time browsing Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, all these social media platforms. And I was just checking my phone very constantly and just replying to WhatsApp messages to clients, even at night, over the dinner table with friends or family. And I realized that this was starting to become a very unhealthy habit. And it was actually causing me to be a bit more negative. And I started to compare my own life to other people's highlight reels. And something had to change. So I decided to work on myself a little bit more. And what I did was every day I decided to start the morning right. I will spend about 30 minutes every morning reading a self-improvement book. And I think one of my favorite books that I really enjoy reading is actually titled Live the Let Go Life by Pastor Joseph Prince. And during this whole 30 minutes, I'll actually be journaling down my thoughts. I'll be speaking positive affirmations over myself. I'll write down my tasks for the day, and I'll just have a hot green tea and just listen to some relaxing music. So after this 30 minutes, I'll usually do another 30-minute exercise on my yoga mat before actually taking a shower. And during this whole time, what I'll do is I make sure that my phone is far away on silent mode, so I'm free from any kind of distractions. So I think really learning to prioritize the important things in my life over the things that seem urgent but not that important, things like replying to emails, replying to WhatsApp, this has really helped me in my personal well-being. And I guess over time, my wife also noticed a change in my behavior. I was a bit more patient, less stressed, less easily frustrated. And it really all started with focusing on my own well-being every day rather than just trying to be a people pleaser.
It's great. So why did you join the financial services industry?
This was about 9 years ago. Fresh out of university, I was actually in a fixed paying job, and I was working there for about a year when management actually approached me and offered me a sales position in the company, but the condition was that I had to accept it. If not, I'll be asked to leave. So in the end, I did not feel comfortable with the decision, and I chose to leave in the end. And at that point in time, my dad was actually in the financial services industry for about close to 30 years at that point. And back then, I had no interest in finance at all. I had no idea what all this financial planning was. But I had some conversations with my dad, and after multiple conversations with him, my perspective started to change. And also being jobless at that point, I sort of motivated me to do something in my life. So I decided to join the industry after realizing that personal finance is a topic that is not really taught enough. It's not really emphasized in Singapore in our education system. And it's a subject that most people don't really think about. They don't really want to think about it. And everyone wants more money, but not everyone knows how to get there. So I realized a good advisor can really help people to have that peace of mind and potentially retire sooner than expected. So I was actually determined to be different when I first started out. Now, having been in the industry for, I think, the last about 8 years, what I realized is that people, they don't want to think and talk about planning their finances, as it can be a little bit of a personal, a bit of a sensitive topic. And by the time they want to start, it might be just a little bit too late. So a word of advice is to really start planning early and speak to an advisor who you trust and you feel comfortable to really help you in your financial journey.
How is your financial advisory practice different from others?
Personal finance is a really broad topic. It's also very complicated, and there's just an overwhelming amount of information online on like different types of insurance policies, investment plans, and this stuff can get pretty confusing to most people. So every financial advisor has their own style of helping their clients. And for me, I think my strength is I really enjoy making things simple and easy to understand. And we live in a world where simple things are made to sound complicated or too technical. And I help make financial planning easy to understand to most people without the use of any kind of industry jargon or any kind of fancy terms. And I think most importantly, my role is really to help my clients to feel comfortable around me and allow them to feel heard and understood. And I like to see myself more as a problem solver, but actually I spend more time listening and understanding to their own unique situation. And by doing this, I think this way I'm best able to really help them find what they might be looking for. And over time, this builds credibility, it builds trust, and it also builds a good long-term relationship.
Now, a little bit more about yourself, Mattheus. How was your family finances growing up?
When I was a kid, there was one day where, this was about 30 over years ago, my dad could not find his car at the car park. So we actually went around, at the time it was a pretty basic Honda car, and we went around the car park trying to find the car, could not find it. We thought someone had actually stolen it from the car park. It was only later on then we realized that the car was actually towed away and impounded because we actually failed to pay the road tax after multiple reminders. So at the point, we were really struggling to make ends meet. And I come from a family of 4 children. Mom's a teacher, dad's a financial advisor. And learning how to manage money responsibly is something not really taught in our education system when we are growing up. And we have to grow up learning about managing money on our own, yet having good finances is such an important aspect in our society today. So today, I'm actually quite grateful. I'm really grateful my dad and mom has really worked hard to support me, and they taught me to actually live below my means. And if there's really one money lesson that I can take away, is I was taught not to fall prey to comparing with others. So for example, learning not to compare with other friends who might live in landed properties when I was a teenager, or whose parents seem to fetch them to school every day in luxury cars. We never know what they might be going through. They might look good on the outside, but they might have their own set of struggles on the inside. So I grew up from pretty humble beginnings, but fast forward to today, I am very thankful that our family, we are in a much better position to be a blessing to others.
What challenges, in fact, did you face when you were starting out?
When starting out in this career about 8 years ago, I don't have a large circle of friends. Actually, I can actually count my friends, the number of friends, close friends I have with one hand. And people are generally a little bit more skeptical when their friends actually join the financial services industry and start to approach them. And some newer advisors might come across as a little bit too pushy or needy. And the perception of financial advisors in Singapore isn't the most positive one. So from the start, it was really pretty much an uphill battle from the start to really win the trust of potential clients. And what I did was actually I started doing a lot of cold calling every day, and I got a ton of rejections. And I think I probably lost a few friends along the way when I tried to call them as well. So it was uncomfortable. The income was low, and it's really not as glamorous as most people think. We only see the highlight reels of advisors with cars, traveling on social media. But I told myself I had to be different. I had to give a positive experience to some of these potential clients who agreed to meet me. And I'm grateful that some of them today they're my best clients. Some of them are really my best clients today. So in national service in the NS, this was about 12 years ago, I was a SAF commando officer. So the mindset of always finishing what I say I will do and pushing through difficult moments, this has actually stayed with me to today, and it's really shaped my value system when it comes to interacting with people. So I think being responsible and ethical are two values that I hold very dear to my heart, and it helps me not be swayed by the commissions, but rather placing my client's interests first place.
That's good. And what is your definition of success?
Well, 10 years ago, all right, I was just fresh out of uni. I had about $500 in my bank account, and I was making a lot of poor financial choices, a lot of late nights. I didn't have much money, didn't have much ambition back then. But really, fast forward to today, by the grace of God, I'm really grateful my life has turned around for the better thanks to my wife, Jenna. So my wife, Jenna, she has actually inspired me to focus on being a better me, not comparing with others or trying to achieve success at the cost of my own health and my own happiness. And she really encouraged me to keep a good attitude of service towards others and really reminding me to place my clients' interests first place. So today, I believe good success is not only about money or the awards you have or the titles to your name. This is what the world judges us upon. I believe good success is a combination of good relationships, good health, well-managed finances, and of course, enjoyment of our work. So if I could just summarize 3 things that has really helped me in my own personal life, my own financial journey, is number one, not owning a car. For me, I don't have a car. A car is the biggest depreciating asset in Singapore. Number two, I only have one credit card, and this just makes life a lot simpler for me. It helps me to keep track easily of my own monthly expenses. And number three, I make it a habit to invest before I spend. So every month, I'll actually set aside a fixed amount of money, and this money, I will invest it. And over the years, it's been growing, it's been compounding, and it's just a very satisfying feeling. And I think lastly, learn to be contented, reduce the desire to compare with other people, and learn to run your own race.
What is holistic planning versus just buying another policy?
So just suppose if you were fixing a jigsaw puzzle, what would be the first thing that most people would do, right? I think most people, they want to look at the big picture of the puzzle, then they will start to begin to do it. So over the years, many of us have actually bought insurance policies, have bought some investment plans, and it's like collecting bits and pieces of that jigsaw puzzle. We have a lot of it, but it's all over the place. So most of us don't actually have that big picture. And in fact, very common, most of us actually forget what we buy after 1 month. So my role as an advisor is really to help clients to see how their insurance policies, how their investments all fit into the big picture. And I really believe in understanding a person's situation first, just to see if we can help. No product pushing, no hard selling of a product that grants the highest commission. Their interest is really my priority. So we may then possibly be able to help them to save money on any kind of overlapping coverages or any kind of unnecessary coverages, while actually patching up any kind of potential gaps in the whole process. More importantly, the clients now have a better picture, really understanding what they have already in place and what they might possibly need in the future.
How do you usually work with your clients?
If you are unwell and you saw a doctor, what's the first thing that the doctor will usually do? Most of the time, the doctor will just ask some basic questions. He might do some checks like your heart rate, your temperature, ask you to open your mouth. But he has to diagnose first, really find out more about your situation, whether there's any kind of allergies to medication, before he can actually prescribe the right medication or treatment. So similarly, my role as an advisor is I need to understand your current situation first, before I can actually recommend the correct products that really best suit your needs. So my promise to my potential clients is that I'm not on the opposite side of them trying to sell products, but rather actually on the same side as them, to really help them find what they might be looking for. So we actually help to look into what's available in the markets for them and choose what is best for them. So depending on the client's needs, this typically can take around 2 to about 3 meetings. And before we actually help them to implement the recommendations. And once done, I usually make it a point to actually schedule annual meetups with them, just to stay up to date with their life situation. And I also have birthday meals with some of my top clients. And of course, I'll arrange to meet them as and when is needed as well.
What if a client has had a bad experience in the past? What will you tell them?
Just supposing you went to NTUC Fair Price to buy a box of eggs. And when you reach home, you realize, out of these 10 eggs, 1 egg is spoiled. Is it fair to conclude that you should never ever buy from NTUC Fair Price ever again in the future just because of that one spoiled egg? Probably not very fair, right? So in the same way, just because you got burned in your previous investments doesn't mean that all investments are bad. There are thousands of investments in the world, and there are good investments, but there are also bad investments. So a good advisor can really help you with selecting the correct investments that best align with your own objective and financial situation. Also, just because you had a bad experience with an insurance agent doesn't mean that all insurance companies are no good. There are many people who have actually benefited from insurance payouts, and unfortunately, every industry has its own share of bad eggs, but that doesn't make all eggs bad. So if you did have a bad experience in the past, I hope that this might be able to give you a slightly different perspective. Choose the right advisor and the right product recommendation will follow.
That's a great advice. Why do we need life insurance coverage then?
Just supposing there is a farmer with a wife and 3 children, and this farmer has a big apple tree in his backyard that produces this juicy, delicious apples. And every day the farmer will take the apples, he'll bring it to the market and he'll sell the apples. And with that money, he'll use it to pay for his home mortgage as well as his family monthly expenses. When I ask my clients this question, if you were the farmer, which is more important to you, the apple tree or the apples? And most of them will say the apple tree because it's the one that actually produces the apples. Interestingly, people tend to forget that they themselves, they are the apple tree. Without them, there'll be no apples for their family. No apples means no income. And doesn't it make more sense that we always protect the apple tree first? So similarly, we all have to get insurance for our car in Singapore, but tend to put off getting insurance for ourselves. So which is more important, the car or the person driving the car? So life insurance is one of those things that when you don't need it, you can get it. But when you really need it the most, you may not be able to get it because of a serious medical condition and you can't buy it anymore.
What is term insurance versus whole life insurance?
Just supposing there are two car parks, car park A and car park B. Car park A charges you $1 a day to park in the car park, while car park B charges you $4 a day to park in the car park. At the end of 1 year, car park A, the $1 car park, keeps all the money, while car park B, the $4 car park, refunds you all the money. Which car park would you choose, right? So the answer is it really depends. There are two train of thoughts here. The car park that charges you $1 is very much like a term policy. It provides very good coverage at a low cost, but has no savings element. The $4 car park B, is like a whole life policy. You put in more premiums, but it can also act as a savings plan in the long run. So the $1 car park is very good for people who need that very high coverage, but at the same time, they have a bit of a budget limitation. And it's also very good for savvy investors who know how to invest on their own with a difference of $3. The whole life, the $4 car park, is very good for people who need that lifetime. They want that lifetime coverage, which also covers for any kind of critical illnesses for life. And most whole life plans, the premium payment terms is only for a limited time. For example, a whole life plan can cover you until 100 years old, but you only pay for 15 years, for example. So, and should the owner decide to surrender the policy one day, at least the option is there where they can get back all the premiums that they have put in over the years, very much like the $4 car park refunding the money back to you.
So tell us, what are the 3 benefits of a whole life coverage?
In life, all of us will only walk 3 scenarios of life. We will either be healthy, unhealthy, or pass on prematurely. So in the first scenario, what a whole life coverage does is that if a person passes on prematurely, his family will receive $200,000 coverage, for example. And this gives the family some much needed financial support in a very difficult moment in their lives. In the second scenario, if the person is unhealthy, let's say there's a disability or he's diagnosed with a critical illness like let's say cancer or heart attack, they will receive $200,000 coverage instead. And this acts really as an income replacement for the period that they are ill and not able to go back to work. And this way, they actually don't have to worry about where the money is going to come from when they're not working. And the final scenario, the third scenario, if the person is healthy, that's where all of us want to be, right? They can consider using the cash value of the plan to actually enjoy in retirement when they may no longer need the insurance coverage anymore. So for example, I do have a client who's in his 60s, late 60s, and he has 2 kids, both grown up, all working, and her house is really fully paid off. So he's come to a point in his life where he feels like he has no need for the insurance coverage anymore, right? So what he did, he has this whole life policy for 25 over years. He decided to surrender the policy and use the cash value that's given to him and really use it to enjoy his retirement. So for whole life policies with a lifetime coverage, people don't have to worry about the coverage ending after a certain date. And what this means is that the policy owner can have a very comprehensive cover. They get to receive money in all 3 scenarios, whether they are healthy, unhealthy, or pass on prematurely.
What is CareShield Life and how does it work?
CareShield Life is actually a compulsory insurance government scheme that pays out a monthly income to help all citizens and PRs if they become severely disabled. So if you turn 30 years old in recent years, you're actually automatically enrolled into the scheme. And common causes for severe disability could be an illness like cancer, stroke, an accident, or even old age sometimes. And what the scheme does is it actually pays out $600 a month if you can't perform at least 3 out of 6 basic activities of daily living, ADLs for short. So these ADLs are transferring, walking, toileting, bathing, dressing, and eating. And as long as you can't do any of these 3 and really need someone to help you with it, the person is actually considered as severely disabled. So we are currently using our MediSave, our CPF MediSave account to actually pay the premiums for this scheme every year. And the coverage is actually for lifetime. It's actually a lifetime coverage. And the payouts actually increase by 2% every year just to keep up with rising costs. CareShield Life actually acts as a safety net to ensure you have some basic monthly cash payouts to actually cover for expenses. And overall, I would feel that this is a fairly decent government initiative. However, we do need to ask ourselves, is $600 a month sufficient to cover most monthly expenses if we were to become temporarily disabled? With rising cost of living in Singapore, might not be enough. So we're actually allowed to increase this coverage using our MediSave account. Consider speaking to a trusted financial advisor to learn more about how this can be done.
Why do people procrastinate when buying insurance?
So just supposing there was a farmer and he had a barn that had a bit of a leaking roof. And each time it rained, he would actually tell himself he would repair the roof after the rain stopped. However, when the rain stopped and the sun came out, the irritating leak would also stop at the same time. So sensing no urgency, the farmer would just procrastinate. And this happened many times again and again and again. And the decay just got worse and worse and worse. And one day, the whole roof just collapsed. So what does this mean when buying insurance? So insurance is a strange thing. You can actually get it when you don't need it. But when you need it, you may not be able to get it. So insurance is actually not bought with money. It's not bought with premiums. It's actually bought with your health status. So sadly, I've encountered people who did not take up the recommendations when they were in good health. A few years later, when they became diagnosed with a medical condition like high blood pressure, for example, it becomes too late to buy, a little too late. Also, policy premiums, they get more expensive as they get older, all because of procrastination. So when's the best time to buy an insurance policy? The best time to buy an insurance policy is actually one day before we fall sick or before we pass on. You pay the least premium and you get the maximum gain. The thing is, do we actually know when that would happen?
That's a good question. So which is more important, insurance or investment?
You know, if you watch shows like Lord of the Rings, those medieval shows where the heroes, the knights, they go into battle, what do they normally carry with them? They normally carry a sword and a shield, right? So the sword is very much like our investments. We use it to conquer and grow our wealth with it. And the shield is our insurance that we use to protect. We protect ourselves. But what happens if we only charge into battle with just a sword, no shield? We can grow our wealth, but if an arrow were to pierce our chest from long range, like a heart attack, for example, and we never saw that coming, all the money, all our savings and investments will be going to the hospitals, will be going to the doctors. But what happens if we charge into battle with just a shield? We'll be so defensive, we cannot conquer and grow our wealth for our retirement. And eventually, we will be defeated by this enemy called inflation. I believe the only person who can go into battle with a shield is just Captain America. So in the battle of life, really consider having a good balance of the shield as well as the sword. In this example, a good mix of insurance coverage as well as investment planning. And this is how balanced financial planning should actually look like.
What are the 3 pots of gold concept that you share with your clients?
Well, I would like to call it the 3 pots of money. And the first pot of money that we should have is actually called the emergency cash short-term needs pot. Aim to have at least 3 to 6 months of income in the pot placed in bank savings. And besides this, anything that we need in the short term, let's say the next 1 to 2 years, place it in bank savings as well for liquidity purposes. For example, if we have an upcoming renovation, an upcoming wedding, or maybe even a deposit for a new home, place it inside the bank savings. The problem with this pot is that inflation will slowly eat up the value of the money and actually make it smaller over time. Because of that, it's good to have another pot called the medium to long-term pot. And the money in this pot will actually be invested for slightly longer-term needs like your children's education or retirement. And this pot really mainly is for growing and accumulating and really has the ability to beat inflation in the long term. And the final pot is for people who like to speculate in the market and they like to play around. And this speculative pot can be for the purpose of trading for quick returns and or even buying the latest juicy stock pick recommendations from their friends. However, only do this with money that you can afford to lose. So my advice is focus on building up the first 2 pots consistently, the short-term pot as well as the medium to long-term pot, and your future self will really thank you for it.
That's good. And why should we grow our money?
All of us, if we could help it, we will all want to avoid risk. It's just how we are all wired as human beings to protect ourselves. If only we can have investments with consistently high returns with no risk or very low risk at all, if only. But one of the biggest risks that's actually facing us in the long term that most people are unaware of is actually completely invisible. It's actually called the risk of inflation eating up the value of our money. So inflation only comes in 2 forms, things becoming more expensive over time, or you realize that your food serving is starting to get a bit smaller every year. So have you noticed your McDonald's burger becoming smaller, yet every year it's just getting more expensive? Let's use 30 years ago as, for example, in the 1990s, a filet-o-fish value meal used to be about $3 to $4. But today, the same filet-o-fish meal, you have your fries, burger, and Coke still there, it's around $8 to $9. It's still there, it just got more expensive. And that is inflation at work, where things start to become more expensive every year. So 50 years ago, $50,000 can actually buy you a terrace house. Today, that same $50,000 can't even buy you a HDB toilet. So does it make sense that growing our money becomes more important than ever, as things start to become more and more expensive?
So tell us, what is the rule of 72?
The rule of 72 was actually a very simple formula discovered by Albert Einstein to actually estimate how long it would take for an investment to double in value given a fixed annual rate of return. So imagine you're investing money that earns an interest rate of about, let's say 8% per year. And how it works, you just divide 72 by your interest rate. So if your interest rate is 8%, you divide 72 by 8, which equals to 9 years. This means that it will take about 9 years for 100,000 investment to double to $200,000. If your rate is 4%, it will take 72 divided by 4, which equals to 18 years, meaning that it will take 18 years for the same 100,000 to double to 200,000. However, if you use the POSB savings bank account rate of 0.05, 72 divided by 0.05, it will take 1,440 years for the same 100,000 to double to 200,000 just by leaving it inside the bank savings. And most of the time, we'll be long gone by then. Our future generations will be long gone by then. So leaving 100% of our monies inside the savings account might not be the wisest idea if we are looking to grow our money. This rule is really just a very handy shortcut, just to get a rough estimate of the potential of your investments without any kind of complicated calculations for most people.
Yep. And what is dollar cost averaging?
So just imagine you're a kid now, and you're given $10 allowance every week to buy Famous Amos cookies, your favorite Famous Amos cookies. And dollar cost averaging is like buying your favorite cookies every week with your allowance, no matter if the prices go up or if the prices go down. So some weeks the cookies might be $1 each. So you can buy 10 cookies, right? Other weeks they might cost $2 each. So this time you only can buy 5 cookies for the same $10. So buying the cookies every week with that $10, sometimes you get more cookies when they're cheap at $1, and sometimes you get a little bit less cookies when they're more expensive at $2. Dollar cost averaging means using the same amount of money, buying into investments regularly, no matter if the prices are high or if the prices are low. And over time, this can actually help you to buy into investments at a lower average price rather than trying to guess when the best time to buy is. And it's just a very simple way to build up your investments over time without worrying too much about the perfect timing. And it really helps to take away the emotion when it comes to investing.
So what does diversification mean to you?
Yeah, I'm sure that most people will agree that a balanced, healthy diet should be made up of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, right? So likewise, when it comes to constructing an investment portfolio, it's also good to have this thing called proper asset allocation. So what this means is actually spreading the investments across stocks, bonds, some in cash, some in property to achieve good long-term financial health. And using stocks investments as an example, this can be spread globally across different countries and further spread across different sectors like consumer goods, technology, healthcare. So just imagine there are 2 lifts, lift A and lift B. Lift A is held up by 1 chain, but lift B is held up by 100 chains. If there was an earthquake, which lift would most people rather be in? Most people would say lift B because it has 100 chains. If 1 chain snaps for lift A, the whole lift goes down. But if 1 chain snaps for lift B, there's still 99 other chains holding that lift up. Lift A is very much like a single stock, while lift B is a global portfolio spread across different funds and spread across different companies. So diversification simply means reducing the risk level of the portfolio by having the investments spread out over multiple chains to hold up the lift, in this example, instead of just relying on 1 chain. So putting everything into the latest hot picks, for example, everything into crypto-related investments, or even the latest gaming stock recommendations from our friends, it might not be a very wise or healthy way to go. And similarly, having too much fats or carbohydrates in our own diet might be hurtful to our health in the long term.
That makes sense. Is retirement planning important for Singaporeans?
Retirement planning is a chief concern for many Singaporeans due to the ever-increasing cost of living in our country, as well as the cost of falling sick. So just imagine there was a very smart squirrel by the name of Sammy, and who lived in the forest. And while many other squirrels, they would actually spend their days playing and just only gathering enough nuts to get by, Sammy had a different plan. And every day, Sammy would actually set aside a little time to find that extra nuts, and instead of eating all of them, he actually tucked it away in the very secret spot of his. So one day, winter actually came, and food started to become scarce. So many squirrels started to struggle because they did not save any nuts. But Sammy actually went to the secret spot and he found the plenty of nuts that were stored up for him. And thanks to his efforts during the easier months, now he didn't have to worry about food all winter. So the moral of the story is this. It's a lot like saving for retirement. If you start setting aside a little bit of your income now while you're working, consistently over time, you build a nest egg. And the nest egg simply means a sum of money that is saved up for the future. So when the time comes to retire and earning money becomes tougher, or you may be asked to leave your job, very much like winter for the squirrels, you have your nest egg to rely on, keeping you comfortable. It keeps you secure. And we all wish to retire one day in Singapore. The only variable is when. And by planning well, retiring earlier than most people can actually become a reality.
I like that. Why is it important to focus on the long-term behavior of the market?
So just imagine there is a girl and she's playing yo-yo while on an escalator going up to the next floor in a mall. She's just playing yo-yo. Similarly, when we invest, what do we tend to focus on, right? If we focus on the yo-yo, we may get sleepless nights, we may even get a headache because the yo-yo is just going up and down, very much like the markets in the short-term basis. But if we focus on the girl, what do we see? We see that the escalator is slowly bringing the girl up. And markets behave just like the girl on the escalator. It goes up in the long term. And that's just the principle of how the stock market works. So time is our friend when it comes to investing. As markets go through times of volatility, we as emotional human beings, we also go through volatile feelings towards our very own investments. But invest with the right strategy and focus on our long-term goal. Whenever in doubt, always ask ourselves, why are we investing in the first place? A word of advice is invest with money you don't need for the short term but want to grow for the long term.
There is this term called investment link policy. What is it actually?
So investment link policies, there are two main types of investment link policies. I'll call it ILPs for short. The first type actually gives the owner insurance coverage while investing the premiums into funds at the same time. And these kind of ILPs means you're actually forced to keep paying the premiums for life just to maintain that insurance coverage. And if you choose to surrender the plan one day, it gives you back some cash value. However, due to the insurance cost over the years, this can actually eat into the value of the investment and lead to a situation where the owner might be getting less than what they put in. And mixing both insurance and investments is like trying to mix oil and water together. They normally don't go very well together. The second type of ILP is a pure investment, where 100% of the premiums actually get invested into funds to help the investments grow over time. And these type of ILPs are really for pure growth. It's really to help the investors focus on growing their money as much as possible. And there is no insurance cost here. So this is really like buying pure mineral water. It's not diluted. So you get better investment results. However, the most important factor for any ILP is the investment fund that is chosen. A poor fund leads to subpar performances, while a good fund helps the plan to grow well over time. You can actually learn more about the right type of funds for your profile by speaking to a trusted financial advisor.
So what should clients do during a market downturn?
Well, just supposing there is an airplane going through a very rough turbulence and the pilot comes on the speaker and tells everyone to take a seat, put on your safety belts. What should the passengers do? Most passengers should put on their safety belts as instructed, right? But what if there's one passenger who panics and he runs to the cockpit and he tries to take over control from the pilot? Or worse, you see a passenger who tries to force open the emergency door and jump off the plane in the middle of the turbulence. It sounds ridiculous, right? But this is exactly what happens to people when it comes to a market downturn. Instead of sticking to the agreed plan, when there's a little bit of a turbulence in the market, they want to sell off all their investments, like jumping off a plane in this case. And worse, sometimes they jump without a parachute, having no backup plan at all. It's their hard-earned savings. So the storms and turbulence last forever. Eventually it passes and the sun comes back out. So look at the crises over the last 100 years that have come and gone. The Great Depression, World Wars I and II, 9/11, SARS, the Asian financial crisis, in 2008, the Lehman Brothers global financial crisis, and I think still very fresh in our memory, just recently, COVID-19 in recent years. So, and throughout it all, the market has actually recovered. So let's apply wisdom when investing, that this too shall pass.
Speaking about wisdom to invest, should we rely on news to invest?
So one interesting observation I have about Singaporean investors is that when prices of property plunge, when it drops, many feel that it's a good time to buy. Why? Because a property is tangible. You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and it gives people a feel-good feeling when they own one. And sometimes if they see others rushing to buy low-priced properties, it might also create a fear of missing out. However, they don't usually apply the same rules to good stocks or mutual funds that drop. For example, reacting to negative news, they tend to sell off the stocks or mutual funds they are holding and some might even be turned off or put off from investing even though the stock prices are at an all-time low. So why the different reactions even though both property and the stock market are just two different asset classes? When it comes to stocks or mutual funds, for example, because it's a non-tangible investment, we cannot see it, we cannot touch it, we cannot feel it, it's just a number. Sometimes investors let emotions or negative news or gossip from friends cloud their judgment. So remember, negative news actually spreads way faster than positive news. So when's the last time you actually heard the news reporting that 10,000 airplanes landed safely today? Probably never. So negative news gets way more eyeballs, way more viewership, and this actually gives more revenue to the news agencies. So when it comes to investing, let's use wisdom and strategy when investing instead of having constantly mixed emotions based on what the news say.
So what do you say to clients who tell you, who come to you to say, my children will support me next time?
Well, I know of parents who actually buy policies for their kids, but not for themselves. And from a financial planning point of view, this might sound a little bit blunt. I'm a parent myself, but children are actually a financial liability, whereas parents are the financial assets. Relying purely on our kids as a retirement income is probably not the wisest idea. We should always protect the assets, that in this case, the parents first. So to give one's retirement fund for their children's education may not be wise. For example, splurging out $500,000 to send a child for an overseas education in the UK. What if you had to do this for multiple children? So filial piety and the value of taking care of aging parents are a little bit less common these days. You can have a filial son, but you can't guarantee that you have a filial daughter-in-law. And even if you have a filial son, can you guarantee that he will have the resources to be able to take care of his own family and yourself at the same time in the future? So just like in the aeroplane safety briefing, the flight attendant always asks that you put the oxygen mask over yourself first, right, before you put it over your children. So plan well for yourself first, so you won't have to put the stress and the burden on your children to take care of you. That is actually the best gift you can ever give to them.
That's an excellent metaphor. And what do you say to clients who come to you and say, I want to do more research?
Just supposing you had a headache and you went to get some medicine from the doctor. And when you reached home, you studied everything about the medicine, you read the chemical compositions of the ingredients, the company that manufactured it, and you even read the instruction manual, the whole thing. But you don't take the medicine. Would this have relieved your headache? Probably not. So likewise, for example, understanding an investment plan and how it works is important. But more importantly, something has to be done for it to work, right? So I've encountered some people that get this common ailment called paralysis by analysis. They actually spend hours researching online, trying to find the perfect time to enter the market, worrying about the fees or if there's just something better out there. And in the end, they become paralyzed by information overload. They did not take any action. So it's good to understand what we are buying. But however, after knowing and understanding, the first step is actually starting. So the difference between the successful and mediocre in any field lies in their actions. Instead of spending too much time doing research or worrying about the market, let a trusted full-time professional manage it for you so you can have more time for the things you actually enjoy, like your own hobbies or even spending time with your own family.
Yep. And the most important thing is to take action.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you say to clients who come to you and say, we don't want to talk about death?
I'm sure we have all attended a funeral wake before. And at a wake, people are very nice, they're very courteous. They'll say, let me know if you need any help. And the first time you call them, they respond very quickly. The second time you call them, they respond still pretty quickly. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth time you call them, they might take a much longer time to respond. And maybe after a while, they might just stop responding at all. So this is just human nature. We forget easily and we move on quickly if it doesn't directly impact us because we all have our own lives, we all have our own responsibilities. So in our own Asian culture, talking about insurance or sickness and death can be a bit of a taboo topic, especially for the older generation. And it isn't exactly dinner talk. And people tend to be a bit more conservative, a little bit more hush-hush until it might be a little bit too late. So I believe that we shouldn't allow our loved ones to lose their dignity. Let's ensure our families are well provided for so they never ever have to beg, borrow, or ask for money. If a loved one were to pass on, every company will come chasing for payments from the bank, the credit card companies, the hospitals, the tax collectors, the legal fees, the telecom utilities companies. They'll ask you to pay what is owed, plus any interest for late payments. The only person that actually gives you money in this difficult period is your trusted financial advisor to help you with your insurance claim.
Okay, so this next question is, what do you say to clients who tell you God will provide everything? I don't need to do anything right now.
So maybe I should start with a story. You know, a woman was warned of an impending flood when policemen actually came knocking on the door. The woman refused to evacuate and she said, God will provide. The flood came and now she had to go up to the second floor of her apartment because the water levels were rising. And this time the Navy came in their boats and they implored the woman to evacuate. But the woman refused and she said, God will provide. Now the water rose even higher and now she was forced to go on the roof of her apartment. And this time the Air Force came with their helicopters and they wanted to rescue the woman. But the woman said, no, God will provide. So eventually she drowned and she went up to heaven. And when she met God, she asked God, God, how come I trusted you, but I still drowned? To which God actually replied her, my dear child, I did provide. I provided the police, I provided the Navy, I provided the Air Force, but you refused. So the moral of the story is this. It's like trusting God and not studying at all for our exams. If we pass, it's truly by His grace. Yet God wants us to be responsible at the same time too. What a man sows, that he will reap. So trusting and planning well for our finances can go hand in hand together, right? Financial planning, very much like career planning or premarital counseling, these are real concerns in our society. And I believe we should do what we can do and what we can't do, things that are completely out of our control, that we let God do.
What is the number one investment strategy advice you have for your clients?
There was once a farmer who bought a very beautiful white horse for a very good price. And when he brought the horse back to his village, the neighbors would crowd around and say, wow, you are so smart to buy a nice horse at such a good price. But the very same night, there was a storm and the horse actually broke loose and ran away. The neighbor said to the farmer, you are so stupid to buy this white horse. See, he ran away. The next day, the white horse surprisingly brought 7 other white horses back to the farm with it. And this time, the neighbors crowded around and they said, oh wow, you are so smart. This white horse actually brings you good luck and good fortune. A few months later, the farmer's son was actually riding the horse in the farm, where he fell off and broke his legs in an accident. Again, the neighbor said to the farmer, you are so stupid. Now your son can't work in the farm for 1 year. Shortly after the accident, a war broke out in the country, and all able-bodied boys had to fight in the military and they were sent to the front line. But the farmer's son was excused. The neighbors finally said to the farmer, oh, you are so smart. This horse actually saved your son's life. So the moral of the story is this. Invest based on your own goals. Invest based on your own time frame and your own financial situation. We invest not based on the latest gossip or the latest promotion or to impress other people. Learn to tune out the negative news around the world when investing. So have a long-term view by investing with money that you don't need for the short term, but really want to grow for the long term.
That's an awesome advice there. Lastly, but not least, who are you currently looking to serve in your financial advisory practice?
Well, for me, I enjoy working with people who are responsible. Personality-wise, I'm pretty chill. I'm a family man at heart. And if I say I'll do something, I'll really do it to the best of my ability. And I like clients that just enjoy having a good conversation together. Clients that feel planning their finances well is something that is important to them. Responsible people, basically. And if they feel it's important to them, it's equally important to me to really provide the right kind of service and the right kind of advice for them. And when it comes to any kind of product recommendations, I live by this motto. If I can't bring myself to do it, I won't ever recommend you to do it. For me, leading by example is important. Don't ask someone to purchase something that you won't dare to purchase on your own. So many times what I do is I show my clients my own personal investments and how it has performed over the years. And I have a strong belief because I've really seen the benefits and the results it has helped me with. And I want to make sure that I practice what I preach. So I always believe in a two-way relationship. Financial planning is really a journey together. It's a relationship that is built on trust and not just a one-off transaction. And if you feel that my values is something that you're comfortable with, that aligns with you, I'll be happy to work alongside you together.
That's awesome. We have come to the end of this GrowCast show, and stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you there.